government climate action, but everyone is underestimating how much other people support climate policies, incorrectly believing that their neighbors don't support action. The researchers found this false perception occurs across all states and demographic groups. Even Democrats don't know that climate policy is very popular.
And why don't Democrats even know that?
The researchers at Boston College partially link it to decades of right-wing media demonizing climate policy.
Go figure.
And it matters, because when people assume something isn't popular, they don't talk about it, leading to what the researchers called, quote, a spiral of silence that helps obscure the deep, widespread support for climate protection measures across the board.
Of course, they don't talk about it. They think others don't agree with them, and they're afraid to speak up about it.
Finally, big moves in electric vehicles. Saudi Arabia has launched a major initiative to become a big player in the global electric vehicle sector, investing billions to develop a domestic minerals mining industry and an EV manufacturing and processing supply chain for batteries and cars. Bloomberg News reports that the petro-state hopes other countries will swap out their dependence on Saudi oil for dependence on Saudi battery materials, a sector that China currently dominates.
Chalk me up as dubious. For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Find, follow, and share us planet-wide on the Facebooks and the Twitters at Green News Report. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
Are you tired of think tank-approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
New video up by the folks at the Lincoln Project that I absolutely love, and we're going to get it out on social media so folks can take a look at it. I screwed up and didn't download it, dummy. I will get it out, though. We will make sure that we get it out so folks can take a look at it. But the punchline, and I love this, is, because conservatives love to say how tough on crime they are. I love the fact that they point out that it's hard to be tough on crime when your party leader is a criminal. It's kind of hard to do that, and I think that's right. I think it's right when all of the criming that we're seeing and that you're defending. It's kind of hard to be the tough on crime people, especially as like I've been saying, Joe Biden's literally killing it. The legislation being passed, the economy turning around for working people, all pretty good stuff. And here to share some thoughts on where we are and where we're going, I've asked Reed Galen to come talk with us. Reed is the co-founder of the Lincoln Project. Reed, thanks for taking time for us.
Thanks for having me back, Rick.
So, again, I love the video. Love the idea that you guys are pushing. Look, the successes of the Biden administration are now the what were the talking points that the GOP had. They're shooting that down. Now we're going back to the old greatest hits, the fear and the smear and the crime and all of that stuff from the party of crime.
Yeah, look, they always go back to the greatest hits, right? Whether or not it's burning cities, dystopian future, right? The shadows, long shadows falling over America. As we saw, when the Mar-a-Lago search first happened, earlier this month, remember they even went back to Hillary Clinton and locked her up. And so, yeah, this is where they go when they've run out of ideas. Well, listen, let's be clear, Rick, they've never had ideas. They don't have ideas. But I think it's also interesting that not only are they going back to their greatest hits, racist dog whistles will not be long for this world, won't be long behind. But also you can see a lot of these candidates across the country now are scrubbing their websites of abortion language, scrubbing their websites about inflation, scrubbing their websites about the 2020 election, because they realize that, Democratic voters are energized. Republican voters are probably a little bit downtrodden given everything. And independents now appear to be swinging toward the Democrats' favor. And so, yeah, look, when all else fails, Rick, they will always go back to fear.
Yeah, and look, fear sells, and sadly, some people are going to buy into it, and this is one of those moments where you can't fall for it, and need to be holding people accountable, especially in this moment where I go, you know. There's a lot of criming going on. In fact, in the last hour, we talked with Dr. Allison Gill about, the Trump crimes, which if you or I had any of these documents, we probably would be never heard from again, let alone 300 of them.
Right. No, look, I mean, I was lucky enough to work at the White House years ago, Rick, and I was lucky enough to work at FEMA and the Treasury Department, where I held a top secret clearance. And I cannot imagine ever having, taken those things, outside of the bill, the structure of the facility in which they were supposed to be, reviewed, let alone taking them home and just considering them mine. Now, even if you're the president of the United States, who can technically, quote, declassify anything he wants, there's even a process to that. But look, I think, Rick, you're making a broader point about the crime, which is one, Trump and the authoritarian semi-fascist or fascist movement, as President Biden called it, the only crimes they believe are those committed by their opponents and those of people they consider their enemies. They are not allowed to do wrong in their own minds. And then I think, secondly, all of the lying that accompanies that, we have to remember, Rick, it's not for you, it's not for me, it's not for most of your listeners probably. It's for the people that you and I were talking about right before we went on air, the guys that you were talking about right before we went on air, which is the whole movement, and this is a movement, Rick, must keep people inside a hermetically sealed bubble of fantasy and untruths and unreality, because that's the only way to keep them in line. Because as soon as the reality starts to break in, then the movement starts to degrade. And if that happens, then Donald Trump can't run again. The Doug Mastrianos of the world have no chance. The Kerry Lakes in Arizona have no chance. And so this is a very deliberate set of tactics that you're seeing from Republicans.
No, and to make that point, I talked to a bunch of my union buddies who are all in favor of Doug Mastriano, and one of the things I say is, understand, the first day he's in office, the Republicans will pass a right-to-work law in this state faster than Kentucky ever imagined doing it. And they'll give Kentucky whiplash on how fast Pennsylvania will become a no-rights-at-work state. And that's going to hurt you. That's going to hurt your family. That's going to hurt everybody in this place. But they don't care because, well, he hates the same people that we hate. Seems to be the kind of mantra that I get in the response that I get back.
Well, and that also goes to what we were discussing, which is it has little to nothing to do about actual economics and everything to do about grievance, a revanchist attitude and a return to a world, frankly, Rick, that never existed, never existed in anybody's mind, but only in the sort of gauzy rearview mirror of history. And it's a reaction to what we've talked about, which is, I think, predominantly amongst a lot of working class white Americans, but I think also plenty of wealthy white Americans that have loss of status. That they see that the country is changing before their eyes. The social mores are changing before their eyes. People, Americans, with the exception now of women in this country, are as free. More Americans are free and have rights than they've ever had, again, with the notable exception of women following the Dobbs decision in too many states. And they don't like it. And Doug Mastriano, just like Donald Trump, represents someone who they don't care if he lies. They don't care if he does whatever it is he does, Rick. If he passes right to work, they'll blame it on you. They'll blame it on the unions. It was years of union overreach that caused us to have to do this. Remember, they're always the victims. They are never the instigators.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, now you are a Republican. I mean, are you still consider yourself a Republican, or are you a former Republican?
Former Republican.
Okay, as a former Republican, because the Republican Party used to be the party of personal responsibility, as I remember.
Sure.
The victim thing wasn't their mantra, but it seems like right now, every time you turn around, they are the victim. They're never responsible for anything. It's always someone else. It's like a 2-year-old. It's never their fault.
Well, it can't possibly be, because they're righteous and in the right all the time, and therefore anything that goes wrong is the fault of those people. And Rick, those people are the people who aren't in the in-group, right? They're not in the know. They don't watch Fox or OANN every night. They're not on Facebook. They're not QAnon adherents. They're not Proud Boys, right? They're none of these things. They are you, me, and I would venture to say the vast majority of Americans, right? And we don't understand or we're elites, or whatever we're suckers, whatever the case might be. But yeah, it's always going to be our fault. It's never going to be their fault.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show. We're with Reed Galen, co-founder of the Lincoln Project. Check out their website, lincolnproject.us. We'll get links out on social media how you can do that. Now, one of the things that I find interesting, and this is going on to what's happening in Jackson, Mississippi, and I want to get your thoughts on their governor there, Tate Reeves. I find it interesting that he's now asking the federal government for some help on helping with the water situation, while just days ago gave $100 million back that was supposed to help with the elderly and the poor with rent assistance and housing. So it's one of these things where, the good Christian people are going, no, we're not going to help the poor and the downtrodden and the needy, but, I need help, so by all means help me. This seems wrong. Well,
look, I mean, it's a travesty and a tragedy on many different levels. I think the fact that, this started in, the first major case of this, Rick, as you recall, was in Flint, Michigan. Jackson, Mississippi isn't the latest, and it won't be the last. American infrastructure has been allowed to lay fallow for decades, mostly because, Republican, legislators, whether state-based or federal, didn't want to give more work to, the building trades, right? That was the reason, right? It wasn't because we didn't need bridges, roads, water infrastructure. But now what you're seeing here is that Reeves is faced with an infrastructure problem that has become a political problem for him. And I think this is the real key, Rick, is that it's only when it became what he thought of as an insurmountable political problem that he chose to make a decision he didn't want to make, right? And I think that if you look at, this whole idea of, what was Grover Norquist said, shrink government to the size where you can drown it in a bathtub, right? That doesn't create better life for individual Americans, individual Mississippians, right? What it creates is the capital of one of the 50 United States, right? In what is supposed to be the most advanced economy and the most advanced country in the world. And we now can't deliver fresh, clean water to its residents. I mean, it's unbelievable. Actually, it's not unbelievable, Rick. I'd like to say it's unbelievable, but it's not. And so I think that you see this, and this is an example, whether or not it's, vast cuts to public education, because, Rick, when they cut spending for education, they're taking on the teachers' unions, right, whatever it is. I'm not a fan of all the things that teachers' unions have ever done, don't get me wrong. But I also know that an educated country is a much smarter and more successful country. And all of this is going to lead to more hardship, more worse outcomes for our kids, worse outcomes for our families. And it was Flint, Michigan, Jackson, Mississippi, Texas with its electric grid because Greg Abbott sold out to the utilities. They all do it for, ideological reasons that aren't based on a solution or public service, just because they think it's good with their base voters. And I think that, the Doug Mastrianos of the world and all these people who are running for governor will bring more of that, not less. Yeah.
So my question is, and this is where this gets for me, why aren't people outraged about what's going on in Jackson, Mississippi, and in Flint, in places where our infrastructure is crumbling after years of neglect and not investing in infrastructure, as much as they are in, hey, we're going to forgive $10,000 in student loan debt. Well, you may not be in favor of that. It may not be enough. It may be too much. But I see people literally losing their minds over helping these students who I think have been screwed over the last couple of decades. But not the same kind of outrage when you're looking at what is a very predictable situation in a place like Jackson. And as I understand, not new. This has been going on for years.
I think it's the difference between living in a town, 1,000 miles away from Jackson where you haven't had that issue, right? If you turn on the spigot and the water comes on, you're good, right? The student loan thing is, I think, a little bit different, and we saw some of this, when I traveled the country and talked to different groups, was that it cut across demographics and it cut across parties, was the idea that, like, well, I paid for my college, I took out loans, or I didn't take out loans because I didn't want to be in debt. But I think and also, Rick, as you know, most of the country does not go to college. And for many years, I think also in a mistaken way, we told too many Americans, if you don't go to college, you can't be successful, right? That without a 4-year degree, the American dream wasn't going to be possible for you. And so I think there were a lot of people who maybe didn't need to go to college for whatever they want to do. They've been saddled with this stuff. Now, I think that the president politically made the best decision he could, which is he had a caucus screaming for him to forgive every last bit of it, which was not going to work. And, he knew he was going to get trouble from the right if he said, he was going to get trouble get in trouble if he did nothing as well. So, this was, I think, a place where he could find a way to begin solving a problem. And remember, as you know, Rick, none of this stuff gets solved overnight. But I think he started to contend with an issue. But your broader point is right, which is, how is it that you're going to a 4-year college and you're racking up $600,000 or $700,000 or whatever it is in college debt? That seems ridiculous, and I think that also goes to a whole system that's been set up, as you said, over decades, which only puts the American individual citizen, the college student, their families or whatever, behind the 8 ball on this stuff. When the truth is that college educations should there is a cost to them. There's no question about that, but it's exploded in cost over the past 20, 30 years, and that's ridiculous as well.
And the reason that I believe it's exploded, and we could argue for days on this, is because states and the tax base has walked away from it. I know here in Pennsylvania, where I'm from, the tax base in the 80s picked up about 2/3 of the cost of tuition. The students picked up about 1/3. Today, that number is the student picks up 3/4. The tax base picks up about 1/4. That's the reason. This is the reason that I support it, because we've walked away from higher education. We've saddled a generation with the kids with this debt. And by the way, we've made truck drivers and people who do jobs that need licensing. We've made them go get educations, whereas employers used to train people in the past to do those jobs. I learned to drive a truck because my employer said, "Hey, I need a truck driver. You want to learn?" And that's how I learned. I didn't have to go to school and take out a loan. We've completely screwed a generation by saying, "Hey, you got to take out a loan to get a chance to work your way into the middle class." I just see this as a small step in a right direction, but there are so many things we should be doing. Last question I've got for you. Election time just around the corner, coming up near.
Right.
Any predictions on how this is going to play out? I know at the beginning everyone's saying red wave. Now it's going kind of the other way. How you seeing this pendulum playing out over the next couple of months as we move towards, I guess, what's being called Rovember?
Well, I am famously awful at making predictions, and given that I'm just superstitious enough that if I say something out loud, I'll jinx it. I will say that I'm cautiously optimistic. I think that the arrows are pointing up, both for President Biden and for Democratic candidates, and I think some of those things are aligned. I think some of them aren't. I think you're right. I think the Dobbs decision is, for Republicans, is a little bit of the dog caught the car, which is you're seeing a lot of situations now in which, whether or not it's the 10-year-old girl in Ohio or women with ectopic pregnancies, or I think it was down in Louisiana where a woman's child was born without a skull, Rick, and they said she was going to have to carry it to term, even though there was no chance of this child living outside the womb. And so what's happening now is the inflexibility of so many of these Republican legislatures and governors to rush to get these things done is now boomeranging on them, and just to say, this is why Republicans, especially conservatives, have always been so hot on making sure the judiciary in this country was as conservative as it could be, was because they know in their hearts, Rick, and in their minds, that what they believe is broadly unpopular with the American people. So they needed to enshrine it with unelected judges, Rick. How long did we hear that?
Activist judges.
Right.
Reed, I appreciate the time. Always great talk with you. I hope you'll come back and share some more thoughts with us down the road.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rick.
Good stuff. Our good friend Reed Galen. Make sure you check out the work that they do over at the Lincoln Project. LincolnProject.us, the website. We'll get links out on social media how you can take a look at that. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. Listen to The Rick Smith Show. For working people on the talk. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our Labor History in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. You know, generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So I love this story coming out of Texas. Yes, Texas. Evidently, in God we trust can only be specific. Can't be only a certain in God we trust can we possibly trust. Evidently, someone went to a school board meeting in the city of South Lake, I guess in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and they had a sign, because evidently in Texas now the law is in public schools you can now display "In God We Trust" signs. Yeah, religion in schools, because we passed a law. So these people said, hey, let's put "In God We Trust" on a rainbow flag, and let's put it in Arabic, because they believe in God too. Those were both denied, because not the right God, and not a straight God, evidently. At least that's the way it is, because they weren't even entertained. The person who was the president of the board, Cameron Bryan, didn't take up the question, saying that they had accepted all the ones that they're going to take. They have all the signs they need and all the 11 campuses and the office building. Sorry, no more. And this makes you go, what? Only approved God signs now? Where are we going with this? And the reality is that's who these people are. It's about power and control, and it's about indoctrination. Remember, anytime a conservative points their finger at you, whatever it is that they're pointing their finger at you, they're doing in triplicate. They're indoctrinating the children in school, because it's what they're trying to do. By all means. I look at my state rep. Her only claim to fame in passing any legislation is getting substitute teachers to be able to go into the classroom without any credential whatsoever, without any qualification, and making them spies, so they can spy on the public school teachers to make sure that they're not indoctrinating those kids. And then, evidently setting up a ring of reporting back, or whatever the craziness is that they've done. Because they've got it in their head. Because, again, it's what they would do. I always find it amazing. It's whatever comes out of their mouth is what they would do. They're indoctrinating our children. Yeah, because it's what they're trying to do. It's what they want to do. It's what they would do. It's the criming that they would commit. So am I surprised that the folks in Texas? No, not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. Also, Michigan. Bunch of people got together and said, hey, we'd like to get the abortion issue on the ballot. The folks gathered 750,000 signatures to get an initiative on the ballot so that people would have the right to vote on making sure that women had access to reproductive care. They only needed 425,000 to get on the ballot. They almost doubled what they needed. But the Republicans on the state board of canvassers says, no, we're not going to let you do that. Sorry. Now, why I find this amazing is, now remember, what the cons told us is that this was going to revert back to the states, and we're going to let the states battle it out, and citizens would have the right to decide. You remember that? Remember how we were going to decide it's going to go back to the states, and citizens would be able to be empowered, and we were going to vote on it? And no, that's not what's going to happen. They're going to use their power and control to impose their will. And understand, they're lying to us at every turn about caring about women and lives and anything. I look at Dr. Oz, who now evidently the Daily Beast has obtained audio from a campaign event back in May where he said that, in private, the most extreme position, no abortion ever for any reason whatsoever, zip, nothing. Sorry, honey, if your life's in danger, better luck next time. He said that it's murder including the moment of conception. So I've been saying this for a long time. Men, start worrying. Start worrying, because they're going to come for you next. The little swimmers, every swimmer is sacred. Go watch Monty Python. That simple. These people are crazy. Republicans hate working people. Remember that. Spread it. Pass that on. Republicans hate working people. And it shows out in every policy and everything they do. That simple. Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you miss any portion of the program, podcast. Grab the podcast, share it with your friends, and let them find out and share what they think. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1921. That was the day the Battle of Blair Mountain raged in Logan County, West Virginia. Members of the United Mine Workers of America were attempting to organize the minefields in the southern part of the state. The efforts to bring workers to union was met with violent resistance. The miners armed themselves and marched south. As many as 10,000 miners joined the march. They met armed company men at Blair Mountain. In the battle that ensued, 1 million rounds were fired. The mine owners even hired private planes to drop bombs on Union miners. The U.S. Army intervened and the battle ended. Despite not being successful in their march, the bloody battle brought national attention to the violence in the coal fields. But that was not the last battle for Blair Mountain. In 2011, there was a proposal to bring mountaintop removal mining to Blair Mountain. This type of mining blasts off large chunks of a mountain surface to get at the coal seams below. Protesters stood against the proposal. They argued it would be environmentally devastating to the area. They also argued that it would blast away one of the most important sites of labor history in the nation. Some coal miners took exception to the protests. In a CNN documentary on the conflict, one union miner said, quote, "Mountaintop removal is what built this house, sends that little girl to school, provides insurance for my wife." But another miner joined in the protest against removal. He told CNN that miners had been, quote, "brainwashed to think, oh, I can't have a job unless it's a mountaintop removal job." In 2014, the state prohibited surface mining at Blair Mountain. For now, but that is subject to change. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
Here's a hot topic for Labor Day: heat. It's been a hell of a hot summer, exploding the top off thermometers with triple-digit readings across the country. As we're learning, week after week of this debilitating heat intensifies wildfires, causes electric grids to fail, kills millions of wild animals, including fish, burns up crops, and concentrates toxic air. But there's another impact that draws little notice. Heat kills workers. Indeed, searing days of 95, 100, 110 degrees are killing and injuring more U.S. workers each year than all the floods, hurricanes, and tornadoes combined. Those toiling outdoors, including farm workers, roofers and carpenters, airport ground crews, landscapers, road and street repairers, letter carriers, and trash collectors, are in the direct line of fire for this invisible, insidious killer. But working indoors is no better if there's no AC, for metal and stone warehouses and manufacturing plants become ovens. Then, welcome to climate change. 20 of the last 21 years gave us the hottest temperatures on record. Unsurprisingly, the yearly number of worker heat deaths in that period doubled. Also, researchers have determined that extreme workplace heat is causing about 170,000 people a year to suffer injuries on the job. The impact of heat is poorly understood, even by workers. A sudden heat stroke is not the only worry, for rising body temperatures can quickly fuzz the mind, weaken muscles, numb concentration. So workers fall, their hands get caught in machinery, they touch the wrong wire, etc. This is Jim Hightower saying America's power elites literally don't feel the intensity of this heat. So the richest country in the history of the world continues to subject millions of its people to senseless suffering and death, not even talking about this embarrassment, much less stopping it. The Hightower Radio Lowdown is brought to you by the
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So yesterday, you had hundreds of University of Minnesota service workers out in the streets demanding better wages, hours, conditions under the banner of Teamsters Local 320 out in Minnesota. And here to share some thoughts on why you had the workers out there. Now, Teamsters Local 320 represents some 1,500 University of Minnesota workers who clean buildings, service dormitories, maintain the grounds, prepare food, maintain the air conditioning and heating systems. You know, basically keep the thing running. You know, the important people, only to be paid poverty wages and treated horribly. And you kind of wonder why they're out in the streets. But here to share some thoughts on why they're out there and what the demands are, I've asked Hannah Bernardson to come talk with us. Hannah is a business agent with Teamsters Local 320 there in Minnesota. Their website, teamsterslocal320.org. Hannah, thanks for taking time for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Rick.
So, for school just beginning, the push to make awareness. Tell me what happened yesterday.
Yes, that's absolutely just it. What we were trying to do yesterday is just educate the public, the incoming students, and the parents about how the University of Minnesota is treating their workforce. So that's what we did. We took it to the streets yesterday. It was move-in week, move-in day, and that's what we were out there doing, just raising awareness.
So walk me through what the conditions are. You know, obviously there's a reason you guys are out in the streets. What's going on? What are the conditions there on the ground?
Yeah, like you had mentioned, we have around 1,500 service workers, and they basically keep the place running. They were the guinea pigs throughout COVID. We were there day in and day out. We didn't have any opportunity to work from home. Right now, a majority of our workforce, they are struggling to meet just basic monthly expenses. The people that they have left right now, they have been long-term employees. They are very invested. They care about the future of the school. So they're trying to make the place better. However, it's getting difficult for them to continue working there with the wages.
Yeah, I can't imagine that they're able to keep the university is able to keep people, and I'm sure the turnover is high, and I'm sure that because we've seen this movie play out all across the country, especially when you're talking about places that seem to operate on poverty wage structures.
Yes, absolutely, and part of the issue too is like I was saying, they can't hire people, they can't retain people. They have, as of last week, they had 204 open union positions in dining services alone. They cannot hire people, and their fix to it is to be able to hire people in off the streets at a higher wage than people who have been there for years and years and years. And so really what they need to do is just kind of reevaluate how they're treating their current workforce and realize that the people that they have left here, they're only left because they care about the students, they care about the university as a whole, and they care about the state of Minnesota.
Yeah. So how do you walk me through the thought process there? And I'm sure you clearly don't know what they're thinking, but what's the thought process that you're going to pay people coming in off the street more than the loyal people who've been there year after year, who you called heroes, who you called essential? How's that supposed to work?
Rick, I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I have no idea. And, I don't think that they know what they're doing, hence the reason why their operations are failing. It's mind boggling. I don't understand it either. To me, it's pretty clear. I feel like it's a form of union busting. I feel like they want unrepresented labor across the whole university.
And that means even more exploitable, even lower wages, even worse treatment. Because I understand, sexual harassment, discrimination, all of this stuff, part of the culture there, right?
Yeah, correct. It's deeply embedded there, and that's one of the things that we're trying to change. And a lot of people say too, they're like, well, hey, why can't these people just go find new jobs? Well, they can. But the thing about it is we want to make the change for the university. We want to make the change for the students. That's the only reason why we're doing what we're doing.
That's one of the things that's always driven me crazy. I've had people say, well, if you don't like the conditions where you're at, leave. And I'm going, no, you make them better. Even if you're only a short timer, even if you're only going to be there a couple of months, leave something better behind for someone else. When did this kind of thinking, it's horrible, so I'm going to leave it for someone else to be treated just as badly. When did that permeate our thought process?
Yeah, I don't know. That's not in my thought process. That's definitely not in my thought process. So
as I understand, yesterday you had a bunch of obviously a bunch of workers out there. You had a bunch of students, a bunch of environmental groups, some politicians came out. It was kind of a big deal, huh?
I mean, I would say so. Yeah, we had a decent sized turnout. It's one of the things that we've been practicing for. We've been boots on the ground organizing. I think we had a decent turnout. Yeah, we had a few hundred people there.
So what kind of response did you get from the community as a whole? I mean, anytime you do something like this, obviously you're going to get some kind of response. What kind of response did you get?
Well, we got a mixture, right? You have some people who don't really believe in unions, so they got a little bit irritated. But after a simple conversation of, hey, this is why we're here. We take care of students, your children. We make sure that their experience here is amazing. So after we kind of explained what was going on and just letting them know, like, hey, look, we're not here just to make your life a headache or to be in the way. We're here to fix things for your child, for the students, and for everybody that's involved. So after we kind of explained things, the audience or the public or what have you, I mean, they kind of got turned around a little bit. So they were very understanding. Lots of support.
Clearly, this is why you do these informational pickets, to educate people, correct?
Absolutely. That's the main reason. We don't want people to be scared of us. We don't want people to think that we're just out here being rebellious or disruptive. We want to raise awareness. We want people to know that, hey, look, we are trying as hard as we can to stay employed here to make sure that this place gets better. However, like I said, it's getting difficult. We got people that can go right down the street. They can make $15-20 an hour, flipping burgers. And so I just think that, these are real careers here. People are very invested, and it's time to start taking them seriously.
You're listening to the Rick Smith Show here with Hannah Bernardson. She's a business agent with Teamsters Local 320 in Minnesota. Their website, teamsterslocal320.org. If you want to check out the work that they do, you can also find them on Facebook and Twitter. All those, we'll get links out on social media you can take a look at. And they've got some pictures from the picket where you can get some information there as well. Now, you said that these are careers, these are jobs that people should be able to make a living on. We hear a lot of, when you're talking about low wage work, we hear a lot of people say, wow, these are temporary jobs, like in the fast food. These are just for kids. These are starter jobs. And I'm sorry, I think every job should come with dignity and respect, and that should be a wage that someone can live on with some bit of health security, retirement security, and dignity in the work that they do. We used to treat people who worked for a living well. We don't seem to do that anymore.
I would agree with you 100%, which is the sole reason why I continue to stay in the role that I'm employed in, is because this is so important to maintain checks and balances and to make sure, people get treated fairly. They can work one job, be able to spend time with their family, put in, 8 hours worth of work and be able to make it.
Wow, there's a novel concept, something that's kind of gone off to the wayside. An 8-hour day to support a family. Maybe one wage earner, maybe just one. Wow, there's a blowback to the past.
Yeah, that's what we got to keep pushing for, Rick.
Now, going back
we can get it done. We can get it done. Everybody. Yeah, go ahead.
No, and going back to your members, the some 1,500 workers who make this university what it is, who keep it moving, who keep it functioning, who keep it beautiful, who keep people fed, who keep things clean. And I mean, you could just go on and on about what your members do, and I'm sure you can and do. But, understand their working conditions. And this is where I think one of the main education points for the parents bringing their kids to the school are their working conditions are your students' learning conditions. So if things are terrible, if things are broken down, if things aren't working, your kids are living in that. So I don't know why you would be opposed to it.
Yeah, and I mean, tuition just keeps going up higher and higher and higher, and so the tuition keeps going up. The parents are paying for it, or the students are paying for it, and they get, for lack of better words, well, they get a terrible experience, So it's like I would be very upset if I was attending the university, if I had a loved one attending the university. Absolutely.
So let me ask you this, Hannah, because the reality is you had this day, you got some attention. Where do you go from here? What are the demands? How are you gonna push this forward?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think really the membership just has kind of been speaking for itself. I mean, they're tired. They're at their breaking point. We have mediation coming up here on September 8th and 9th. That's a Thursday and Friday. We plan this picket to hopefully be able to shine some sort of light and be able to get the university to move a little bit, to come a little bit closer to try to meet the demands. Otherwise, it's... I mean, we don't want to do it, but I mean, sometimes we have to have a work stoppage. That's obviously the last route that we want to go. However, that is what we are preparing for. So no,
at some point,
kind of where we're at.
The last arrow in the quiver, Hannah, is you got to go on strike. That the only power working people have and have ever had is the right to fold their arms and march their feet. That's it. To stop working. That's the only real power that workers really have ultimately. And hate using it. Look, I've been on strike in the past, hated doing it, but sometimes you don't have a choice. Like I said, it's the last arrow in the quiver. I hope it doesn't come to that. But if it does, I wish you guys the best, and one day longer, one day stronger, because ultimately together, united, as a country, and this is where I'm thrilled to see the approval rating for unions through the roof at this moment, that I think people are finally starting to get it. Only together are we going to move this economy in a way that's going to benefit workers and not solely benefit the Wall Street crowd.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better.
So for our listeners in Minneapolis, they're on KTNF, AM 950, who are in the area, what do you want them to do? What's the request for our folks in your listening area?
I guess it would be to just turn up. I mean, show up to things. If you see us outside, honk, maybe stop, ask a little bit about what's been going on. We have different petitions that we have floating around. Some are on doing call-ins to President Joan Gable. So, I mean, really just anything for support. And I guess the one thing that I just want to leave with everybody would be to, just keep an open mind about this. When you see people outside, instead of, getting frustrated because it's slowing you down from getting somewhere, maybe just ask, hey, what's going on? Ask before you form opinions about unions.
No, but see, I got a whole different line of thought on that. You jump in line with them, you walk with a mile in their shoes, and then you understand where they're coming from. That's a whole different thing. Maybe bring some donuts and a pizza or something. Bring something to help.
Hey.
Be helpful.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that 100%. But some people, they're just not to that point yet. Some people just flick you off and keep going. So if those people could roll the window down and say, hey, what's going on? That would be a step in the right direction for me.
Hannah, I appreciate the time. Keep up the great work. I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks so much, Hannah Bernardson. She is the Teamsters Local 320 business agent. Check out their website, teamsterslocal320.org. We'll get links out on social media. I can check that out. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. For working people on the top. Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1991. 3,500 buses rolled into Washington, D.C. They were loaded with protesters, there to participate in Solidarity Day. The AFL-CIO organized the event to coincide with the Labor Day weekend. They issued a statement, "Why We March," outlining labor's demands. The purpose of the day was to bring attention to the concerns of the nation's working people, especially over health care. Other reasons for the march included a call for more public works programs. Another major demand was the end to permanent replacement of striking workers by scabs. Bernie Dinkin, Secretary-Treasurer of the Amalgamated Clothing and Textile Workers Union in Philadelphia, explained, "One of the main purposes for us going down is to let our friends know, our friends in the Democratic Party who are sitting on their laurels, that if they do not support anti-scab legislation, we will vote against them, no matter what they've done in the past." The most important aim of the event was to show worker strength and solidarity. A similar showing of solidarity had taken place in the nation's capital 10 years before. After President Reagan fired striking air traffic controllers, a September 1981 rally had drawn more than 250,000 people. The 1991 action brought out similar numbers. Despite the 95-degree weather, tens of thousands converged on the nation's capital. They came from across the nation and 30 countries. 100 buses and a specially chartered train made the trip from Philadelphia. Noticeable among the crowd were members of the United Steelworkers Union with their gold and blue shirts. 180 different labor, religious, and civil rights groups stood up on that day for the rights of working people. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com. Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Check out our website, thericksmithshow.com. Let me go back to that for a second. The idea that, because we haven't been a strike society in a very long time. Look, I caught a portion of it early in my life. There were some in the 80s. When I was on strike, it was early 90s. And it was because you had no choice. This was one of those moments where you go, you've been pushed into a corner. There's no choice. And real quick, how it worked out for us is, the company that I worked for, the group of companies that were negotiating the contract with the union, said we want part-time workers. We want all of the dock workers to be part-time, and we're gonna pay them part-time wages. We're gonna bring them in for 4 hours. We're gonna work them. But what we'll do is all the full-time dock workers, we'll red circle them. They will be fine until the end of their career. They're gonna have jobs, but we're gonna replace as they leave. We're going to replace them with all part-timers. So we're going to take what were good family-sustaining jobs. We're going to take what were good middle-class family-sustaining jobs, and we're going to turn them into part-time employment with fewer benefits and fewer opportunities and all of that. And through attrition, we're going to destroy what was built by a previous generation. And we said no, that's not how that's going to happen. And in 1994, we went on strike nationwide to say no part-time dock workers. And in fact, there are still full-time dock workers. Every dock worker that works in these companies are full-time with health care, with retirement security, with job security, all of that, with full employment rights. And it took everyone standing together saying, no, that's not what we're going to allow to happen to our industry, to our careers. And it's that kind of power that has to be exerted across industries. And look, what we're seeing right now, and we're seeing a lot of organizing going on. Starbucks is organizing, Amazon's organizing, REI's organizing, Apple's organizing, everybody's organizing, everybody's winning elections, everyone's having big celebrations, and that's fabulous. It is great to see this energy around organizing, this energy around, yes, we're going to join and form unions. It's amazing to see. No contracts yet. At some point, going to have to fight the battles of the past. And labor's history is a rich, bloody history. of people demanding recognition, of people demanding that first contract. And that's the battle. And saying, look, we're going to shut things down. We're going to make life uncomfortable for a bit. And this is where, as a working class, and this is where I go back to, if I see a picket line, I jump on it. I go and I walk with those people and I talk to them and I go, hey, you know, what's going on? Why are you out here? What made you cross that threshold to say, yeah, I'm going to put my entire life on the line. I'm going to put the livelihood of my family on the line. I'm going to put everything, I'm going to put it all on the line to cross that threshold, to walk out onto that picket line, knowing that I may not come back. This may be the end. But I'm fighting for something. I'm fighting for better opportunities for myself, for future generations. In 94, when we were on strike, we knew what we were fighting for. We were fighting for the unborn. We were fighting for the generation that was coming after us. The people who have those jobs right now. And you go, well, unions are just selfish. No, they're not. They were thinking about the next generation in that moment, saying, no, we can't have this. And in places where it did happen, where they were able to divide. Two-tier wage systems are a perfect example of how the employer were able to get workers and unions to split themselves in half and screw the future generations. And we've learned from that and undoing it. This is why, as a society, we have to come back together and say that organizing, collective bargaining, that people joining and forming unions is good for society. It's good for the economy. It's good for the working class. Now, is it the best thing in the world for the Wall Street folks? No, because it means less profit for them. It means less in their pockets. But ultimately, what it does mean is it means a more robust economy. It means more workers with more money in their pocket to spend, so Wall Street can figure out how to get it. This is kind of how this game worked in the old days. So for me, when I see a picket line, I want to join it. I want to walk with those folks because I know the courage it takes. I know the courage it takes to step up and to speak out. I know the courage it takes to say, I'm not going to work for poverty wages, and I'm not going to just go somewhere else. Because here's the problem with that. Just go somewhere else if you don't like it. Everywhere else, especially in certain industries, acts just the same. In the race to the bottom, you're still at the bottom. If one employer is getting away with it, another is going to have to do it to compete. That's how this game works. Which is why what happened out in California, I think, is a good thing. And I hope Governor Newsom signs the bill, and I hope they begin the commission to help fast food workers have a floor under their feet so they get decent wages, hours, conditions, so they get sane scheduling, so they get good treatment, so that they can produce a wonderful product that the employers, the franchisees, the people who own the businesses can make a good profit off of, and the consumers can get what they want and need and expect. Without there being people living in homeless shelters to provide them with their meals. We're a better society than that. I know we are. I know we are. Or I know we can be. So the next time you see a picket line, take a couple minutes. Walk with those people. Ask questions. Yeah, I've been on picket lines where people have just, flipped the bird. Oh, you're lazy. No, okay, yeah, you know. But you'll gladly take the benefits that I'm fighting for. You'll gladly take the health insurance. You'll gladly take the retirement security. You'll gladly take the increase in wages. Because what we know hands down is that union employees make higher wages, have better health care, have better retirement security. And what we also know hands down is by them having that better health care and that better retirement and those better wages, it pulls the other sector up because, guess what? Turns out, when the non-union employers, don't want their workers to bring a union in, they do pay a little bit better. Not anywhere near, but a little bit better. And then they go on well, you don't have to pay dues. See how lucky you are? And I say this all the time. I wish I could take all my money and get the kind of return on investment I get out of my dues dollars. You never hear anyone say that, do you? I wish I could get the kind of return that I get for my $65 a month. I wish I could get that kind of return on every dollar I have. I'd be a very, very wealthy man. So for me in this moment, good on the folks there in Minnesota. I wish them the best. If you see them out on the picket line again, get out there and walk with them, stand with them, talk to them, stand up for them. Because you know what? While you're making their lives better, you could possibly be making your life better as well. You know, that rising tide thing that they used to talk about, with the boats and all that? Yeah, could be a boat that you're in. Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I do answer all emails personally. If you miss any portion of the program, make sure you grab the podcast. Wherever you get yours, you'll find ours. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.